Okay, welcome to part 2 of Ethos, Pathos, and Logos. Let's take a look at one more commercial. Tell me what you think of this political ad's use of ethos, pathos, and logos.
I don't think Mitt Romney understands what he's done to people's lives by closing the plant. I don't think he realizes that people's lives completely changed. When Mitt Romney and Bain closed the plant, I lost my health care, and my family lost their health care. And a short time after that, my wife became ill. I don't know how long she was sick, and I think maybe she didn't say anything because she knew that we couldn't afford the insurance. And then one day she became ill, and then I took her up to the Jackson County Hospital and admitted her for pneumonia, and that's when they found the cancer. And by then it was stage 4. There was nothing they could do for her, and she passed away in 22 days. I do not think Mitt Romney realizes what he's done to anyone, and furthermore, I do not think Mitt Romney is concerned.
Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Okay, so that ad obviously makes heavy use of pathos or appeal to emotion. And earlier in the video, in the previous video, when I said that it's not fair, it can be manipulative to use mostly emotion, this is an example of what I mean. And I'm sure you know that political ads rely heavily on appeal to pity and fear tactics and just making you angry without always providing valid factual proof. So they've got, the dark pictures of the closed plant. They have the sad music, the word cancer. There's a narrative here, a story here. And they end up attacking the person at the end by saying that Mitt Romney doesn't care about closing the plant or the fact that his wife died. I should have warned you too, this is an old ad, from the Obama-Romney election. So what are some things you can do when you see ads like this? Well, one thing is not to watch them, but they can be hard to avoid. Another thing to do is to use a site like factcheck.org. Politico is another one, and these are nonpartisan websites. So you should always click on the About Us tab, and I'll just bring one of them up here. Read about how they're funded and what their mission is to make sure that they are nonpartisan websites. Snopes.com is another good one. Maybe you've used before. So I just went to the search button and I looked up Romney cancer death plant closing, and they'll give you a long rundown of the facts about what happened. In this particular case, Mitt Romney did close the plant, but Joe Sopcik's wife did not get insurance from his job at the plant. She actually got insurance through her own job and in a different place. So, there were some facts that were correct, but there were some facts that were incorrect. And that's what I usually find when I go to these sites. So that's a way to make sure you aren't falling prey to just being motivated by your emotions in these ads that don't use a good mix of ethos, pathos, and logos. Okay, so what is the next step? Well, you will be writing a paper similar to the persuasive paper that you read for this week, Sex, Lies, and Conversation. So this was a paper about how men talk versus how women talk, kind of stereotypical, but and not really controversial because of the way she presents the material. So she doesn't judge either side or say that one side is right or wrong. She just says, look, this is what research has shown us about the way men talk. This is what research has shown us about the way women talk. And if we know this about each other, then we might actually be able to communicate better. And your paper should be similar. You should show one side, one point of view in the context in which it makes sense, and another point of view in the context in which it makes sense, but offer some kind of solution, some kind of argument at the end. And I'll go into a little more detail on that in a minute. But I did want to point out just a few things regarding this paper that will serve as a good model for your own paper. One is that it has an exciting title. People see the word sex and they get interested. So you will want to have a title that draws people in, just like the subject line in your email did. It also begins with kind of an interesting story, a little anecdote about the man talking at the party that kind of illustrated what she was about to discuss. And we also will write engaging introductions to our papers to draw people in. In addition, she cites sources, and you'll need to have a minimum of 5 sources for your paper. One of them will have to be a scholarly article. And when she cites her sources, she always gives information in the text of the paper about where they're from. And those words she uses, sociologist and book, they give her credibility because she's using actual research. She herself is a researcher, so she does speak in the first person in this paper. You may choose to speak in the first person if you're talking about your own personal experience. You're not doing primary, research in the lab, so I wouldn't use Mai to talk about reading articles or books. But she was a psychologist who actually did research groups of men and women speaking, so that's why she uses Mai. So you'll have to pay attention to whether you're going to use I and Mai in your essay. But she gives herself credibility, good ethos, because she has done research. Here's another source she cites. In the April issue of American Psychologist, Stanford University's Eleanor Maccabee reports, very similar to the summaries that you guys did of the articles, the trade articles for your email. She has when the article came out and who the author was, and a verb reports, and then a summary of the article. And this person is from Stanford, so that gives her good ethos, good credibility. So she's already got appeals to logic by doing research, ethos by having it from credible sources, and emotion by having a kind of an engaging title and an engaging introduction. She also has a thesis statement. Her thesis statement is right here. And she doesn't have it at the very beginning. She kind of saves it for a little bit later. And we'll actually put our thesis statements in the middle of the paper. Because again, we really want to write, this semester I really want to have you write papers that are about compromise, that are about seeing someone else's point of view, offering your point of view, and then coming up with a solution that you can prove benefits everyone. Her thesis statement is, I believe these systematic differences in childhood socialization make talk between women and men like cross-cultural communication, heir to all the attraction and pitfalls of that enticing but difficult enterprise. And then she goes on to describe her own research and other people's research, just stacking the facts, amassing information from multiple sources. Well, there is one paragraph at the beginning that I did want to point out in particular. And that was this one. So she has 3 sources in this one paragraph. A political scientist that observed this pattern, a sociologist that talked about this pattern of talk in her book, and then a statistic that I'm presuming she got from a 3rd source. So she's synthesized information from multiple sources into one paragraph. And that's what I'll be looking for in this paper. So for the last assignment, the email, you had one source that you summarized. Now you'll be looking at multiple sources and showing how they relate. They agree, they disagree, and how they support your ultimate opinion. And then I'll just point out her conclusion as well. There are a couple things you can do in the conclusion of a paper like this. One is just to restate your main points to make sure the readers have picked up on them. Another thing you can do is to refer back to your exciting introduction, and she does that when she refers back to the paradox of the talkative man at the beginning. So when you draw people in with an exciting title or an exciting intro paragraph, and then you refer to it again at the end of the paper, people get a sense of closure. They feel like they've come full circle. So that's a good way to end your paper. And then she also answers the question, so what? Who cares? Why did I write this? And she does it in a really powerful way. In these times of resurgent ethnic conflicts, the world desperately needs cross-cultural understanding. Like charity, successful cross-cultural communication should begin at home. I mean, it's almost like she's saying that we're not going to be able to get along with other countries if we can't get along with the people that we live with. It's kind of a profound statement, and it really sort of puts everything she said in a newly important context. So if you can do that at the end of a paper, that's a good thing too. Why did you write this, other than that Jill is forcing you to for your written communication class? Like what's the real point? Like what's the overall problem that we're trying to solve? So you read that for this week. I just wanted to highlight those items. This is a good model for the type of paper that you'll write. One major difference is that we will be using APA format. This was written for the Washington Post. This was a newspaper piece, so she did not cite sources in the body of the paper using any kind of academic style. And we will be using an academic style, which I'll go over in a subsequent video. Okay, the last thing that I wanted to show you in this video is your topic proposal assignment. So on Blackboard in Learning Plan 6, you will see an assignment for proposing a topic, and all that is answering these 4 questions. What is the subject area that you're interested in writing about and why? What is the opposing viewpoint, and what are the contexts in which that viewpoint makes sense? What is your viewpoint, and what are the contexts in which that viewpoint makes sense? And list one way you can appeal to emotion, one way you can appeal to reason, and one way you can establish credibility with this topic. There's a little description of the paper. I'll give you a more detailed rubric later, but there's a description of the paper here. You can write about an issue in your community, in your personal life that has, wide appeal. And I give you an example here, or an issue in your program area. But again, this paper is going to be about, it's persuasive, but it's also about compromise. So you have to look equally at both sides, and then ultimately you'll reach some kind of compromise or just push a little bit for your own side at the end. And then I give you an example here about, I'm interested in researching peanut allergies. So I answered the 4 questions here. So you can just answer the 4 questions in a Word document. It is worth 5 points. And then turn that in on Blackboard by 11:59 p.m. on Friday. And don't stress out about this. If you want to change your topic at any point in the process, you can. I don't recommend it, but it happens. It's all part of the writing process. But these are easy points. So pick a topic. I want you to get started thinking about, the issue you're going to write about. And if it changes later on, that's just fine. Okay, this ends part 2 of Ethos, Pathos, and Logos.